We were doing the chapter Chinese Civilization, and this is the third video on the chapter. So far you have learned about the location of the Chinese civilization. It was located on the bank of the Huanghu River, which is a very important river for the people of China. Though it was called China's sorrow, but at the same time it was a blessing for the people, because the fertile silk that was brought by the river helped the farmers to grow crops. It was very fertile, and so the farmers used this soil to grow crops. Next, you have learnt about the different dynasties that ruled China. That is, the Shang dynasty was the first dynasty. During this time, the Chinese developed their own writing system. That was followed by the Zhou dynasty. This was said to be the period when the Chinese civilization reached its peak. That means it had flourished a lot. And Confucius, the great Chinese teacher, he was teaching his ideals to the people during this time. And you know that towards the 8th century BC, we find that the Zhou dynasty was facing some problems, because there were the military leaders were trying to become independent. They were engaged with war in conflicts. Then there were invasions of the tribes like that of the Qin. And then we find that ultimately the King Shi Huangdi, he brought all the warring kingdoms under his control. He unified the kingdom, and he established an empire. He declared himself to be the first emperor of China in 221 BCE. So that was, in short, what we have learned so far about the Chinese civilization. Now, today we will take up about the social structure, or about the society in the Chinese civilization. Now, when we look at the society that the Chinese had, we see that the society was based on hierarchy. What does it mean? It means that according to the rank the society was made up of, that is, according to the position of the people. And if we look at the hierarchy, social hierarchy, what we see at the top was the emperor or the ruler. He was at the top of the society. He was at the top of the social hierarchy. Below him were the nobles, merchants, artisans, and farmers. They followed the emperor, means again they were the next in rank. The slaves, like in all other civilizations in China, also the slaves were at the lowest level of the social hierarchy. And but we find that the soldiers were respected by the people. They were feared and at the same time respected by the people. So they enjoyed a very special position in the society. And the Chinese, they also had the practice of worshipping their ancestors. We find that they feared their ancestors, they respected their ancestors, and they also worshipped them. The family was a close-knit one. That means all the families, they were very close to one another. The elder members of the family were respected by all the other members of the family. So the society, the family was close-knit, we can say. So what we find that in the social hierarchy that was there in China, like any other civilization, it was also based on a hierarchy, where we find that the ruler or the emperor is at the top of the hierarchy, and social hierarchy, according to his rank, he is the most important person. So he was at the top of the hierarchy. He followed by the nobles, the merchants, artisans, and the farmers. They were there. At the lowest level were the slaves. This is a feature which was common to all the ancient civilizations we have read so far. We find that the slaves were at the bottom of the social ladder. And but at the same time we find that soldiers were respected. They enjoyed a special position in the society. They were respected, but at the same time they were feared by the people, and so they enjoyed a position that was different from the others in the society. They were respected, at the same time they were feared also. So their position is somewhat different from the others. If we look at the Chinese family, then we find that the family was close-knit. That is, all the family members, they were very close to one another. They had the structure where the elder members of the family, they were respected by all the young members of the family. So they had this practice of showing their respect to the elder members of the family. At the same time, we find that in China, the people, they respected their ancestors. They had a great respect for their ancestors, and there was also the practice of worshipping their ancestors. So that was the society that we find in China. Next we come to the economy. Now what is economy? You know that economy means the different occupations that the people had, the livelihood that the people had. What was their source of earning? What were the occupations that the people carried on? If we look at the economy, then we find there was agriculture, sericulture, art and craft, and trade. Now, first we will take up agriculture. Agriculture is the most important occupation, or was the most important occupation of the people in China. Because the land was fertile, China was situated on the bank of the civilization came up on the bank of the Huanghe River. So the land was very fertile, which was used by the farmers to grow crops. And they used to grow a variety of crops. And some of the crops like rice, wheat, barley, millet were grown. So crops were abundant, there was plenty of crops that they were growing. And the Chinese were the first to cultivate tea. So they were the first who had started cultivating tea. Tea was mainly consumed or used for medicinal purposes. But later on we find that it became a popular drink in China, and afterwards it became very popular in most of the Asian countries. So the Chinese were the first, or we can give them the credit of cultivating tea. They were the first to grow or cultivate tea. But in the beginning, tea was mainly used for medicinal purposes. Later on, they started using it as a popular drink in China. And from there, afterwards, it spread to other Asian countries, and there also it became a very popular drink. So that was agriculture. Now, we find that during the Iron Age, that is when the people have learned the use of iron, the Chinese people, they started making tools out of iron. Tools means those things which help them to work. And for agriculture, they started making iron tools which helped them in plowing the soil. And so that brought about a great change in the agriculture. That is, they were now being able to grow more crops because they were using iron tools for plowing the soil. Along with that, we find the development of an irrigation system and construction of dikes and canals also helped in the growth of agriculture. So they were using iron tools, but they had also developed a very good irrigation system. They had built dikes and canals so that they would be able to use the water of the river, and together all these things helped the cultivators or helped the people to grow crops that brought about a development in cultivation or a growth of cultivation in China. So agriculture became the main occupation of the people, and like all other civilizations, here also we find that it was the main occupation of the people. Next we come to sericulture. What is sericulture? Sericulture is the practice or is the method of rearing silkworms and getting silk from it. So the Chinese, they were the first in the country, in the world, to rear silkworms and to make silk. Only they knew how to get the silk and how to rear the silkworm from there, how to get the silk, only they knew. And they had kept it a secret for a very long period of time. They had not shared it with anyone. They knew how to weave silk. They had kept it a secret, and this silk had a great demand in the places outside China. And so that became an important item of export for the people. So after agriculture, the most important occupation we can say that is that of sericulture. Why sericulture? Because that silk had a great demand outside China also. So people were rearing silkworms and making silk out of it. They knew how to weave silk. They had this technology and they had kept it a secret for a very long period of time. They had not shared the secret with anyone. And the silk had a great demand outside China, and so that became a main item of export. So for today, we have learnt about society and two important occupations that the people of China carried on. That is agriculture, which was the main occupation of the people. The next important occupation we can say is that of sericulture, that is the method or that is the way of rearing silkworms to make silk. So silk was also a very important thing that the Chinese had, Only they knew how to weave silk, and they were the ones who were exporting or who were selling silk to other places. So, and at the same time, we learned that they had the knowledge of growing tea also. They were the first country to cultivate tea, and they were also the first country to cultivate or to raise silkworms for silk. So that is about the occupations of the people. In our next video, we